All right, so it's Emily again. This is my favorite part of every conference, is having the affected patient and family panel. So you actually have the other experts here, the main experts here to answer your questions. This is a good opportunity for, say, parents of young children to ask some of the older individuals some questions, and vice versa. So anyone from the crowd have questions, or should I get us started? Everyone should have read the bios, but yes, let's say our names. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Hillary. I'm Koleden Selanders.
I am Koleden.
Hi, Cassandra.
Hi, I'm Anna.
I'm Thomas.
And I'm Kimberly. Oldest.
Okay, so one of the questions from the last panel that I think would be good to ask this group is, somebody asked, what does it mean to be ready for reconstructive surgery? So how did your family and you decide that it was time for you to have, say, an elective reconstructive surgery? Whether that be a Mitrofanov or penile reconstruction or an ACE. Anyone want to answer first? Thomas?
Some of it was by choice, some of it was not. So my history is that I'm a Boston Children's patient, so they do the complete repair there. And then when I was 10, we opted in to do some more of the bladder neck reconstruction. My parents thought that we'd want to wait a little while, like some of the doctors and clinicians have been saying, to see kind of how I developed and grew and how it would take from there. So I had that when I was 10, and then I have an augment and Mitrofanov now at 14. That one was less of an opt-in. I've actually had a bladder rupture when I was 14, and so that led to requiring the augment and Mitrofanov. So there wasn't really much preparation for that. That was kind of out of necessity. And that was actually my last surgery when I was 14. I haven't done anything, any reconstruction since. I haven't done anything cosmetically. So it's kind of a mix of both. For me, it was really kind of circumstances led me down a certain path.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So my urologist here in Seattle was actually a guy up in the 1960s, Julian Ansel, and he did a closed primary repair. And so it was in surgeries at birth. I was at the hospital within 12 hours after birth. And then was wet until, it just leaked until they did an ileal conduit diversion. My mom was insistent that happened before I went off to kindergarten. So I was 5 when that happened, and then actually the kind of convenient thing though, and maybe this is the case for parents, is that I could change my own diapers. That's handy. But then I didn't have any surgeries. Well, I had some repairs of things, the conduit, and that was actually a reconstruction that I have to tell you was my only surgery as an adult, 27 years old. And I don't really remember how it came to be, except Dr. Ansel told me about this new guy doing finagling new things in Seattle, at Seattle Children's. I'd never been at Seattle Children's, by the name of Mike Mitchell. So Mitchell did my bladder augmentation, and that was in 1991. So I can't remember really exactly. My parents weren't really involved in that. I'm imagining they were primarily driven by getting me ready to be in school.
So as a parent, Koleden recently, so it was about 2 years ago that he had his reconstruction, and where he's a patient at Seattle Children's. So the biggest thing was talking with his doctors. There was a lot of, so he had urodynamic studies done, there was lots of ultrasounds, lots of talking, lots of appointments. And then it was about probably 6 months of planning. And as parents, my husband and I, what questions? Let's talk about it. To the point where Cole's like, I just wanna get it done, let's do it. And so we felt making him ask those questions and kind of talking about those hard things that he felt a little bit more like, all right, let's do it already. And I think that helped quite a bit with that whole process.
How did you feel about the process?
I knew it was gonna have to happen someday, and it did make me nervous because I didn't know what the outcome would be. But like my mom said, the question just made me want to get it done with, and so I got it done with, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
Thank you. But I think we're talking about fully informing the child so they don't think that, people did hid things from them or there were secrets and they were shocked after their surgery. We know that that can really harm a relationship and harm trust. Any other questions from the audience?
Informed that your child, while you were pregnant, that you had a child with exstrophy. And I'd like to know how you're feeling here today after hearing all of the stories and the journeys of different families. I'd just love for you to share a little bit about your background, how you came here and how you're feeling after being here today.
Try not to cry. Just because I got here, and I will say that I didn't realize just all the emotions that I would feel just finally being around other people who knew what I was talking about. Some of the presenters talked about how when people ask, "How are you doing?" or "How's your son?" you have to, so as a parent, sometimes I just have to have a smile on my face and say, "Everything is fine." And then in the back of my head, I'm like, there's all this long list, and how much do I want to go into? How much do people really care to hear? Because it's very intimate details. And so, to be here, and then I just see everyone, and suddenly I don't feel alone. And I felt alone for a while. So, just depending on Facebook groups, suddenly seeing people in person, it's a lot. It's a lot of emotions.
We're really glad you're here. The motto of Youth Rally is "You are not alone," so this is your new family. My late mentor, Barbara Nielsen, who was a social worker in Toronto, always said that, exstrophy is below the belt and under the radar, and that can be quite isolating because it is intimate. You want to protect your child's privacy. So it's really important that you have a safe space, so we're glad you're here.
Yes, 16 months. And we are in Oregon too. I don't know, wait, did you ask that or? Okay, yes, and we go to North Becker. But Dr. McGarry and Dr. On did our surgery, and we were so happy that we found Seattle Children's. It was truly a God thing to find Seattle Children's. No one referred us to Seattle Children's. We made the appointment ourselves. And I don't remember if it was Dr. On or one of the MFM doctors. When I finally met with her, she asked, which was a completely different tone than the doctors that we saw in Oregon. But they were super excited to see us, and I think the MFM doctor, well, let me back up. In Oregon, the first doctor that we saw actually told us that they were not comfortable delivering our baby, which at first I just couldn't believe, because they told me that I had a healthy baby besides bladder exstrophy, but they didn't feel comfortable delivering him. But I think that was a blessing in disguise, because I'm so happy that they didn't deliver him and that I was able to find ABCC and I didn't deliver at Seattle Children's, but the MFM, she was super excited to see me, and she was like, "I'm glad that you found us, but I don't really know why you're here, because you can go to any doctor, get bladder exstrophy, you should be able to have a normal, healthy birth." And that was so refreshing to hear, just because when you are a mom, and I found out at 20 weeks in my ultrasound, and then the doctor tells you that they don't feel comfortable delivering your baby,
again, it's just, you feel alone and you don't know where to go. And so it was so refreshing to go to Seattle Children's to know that, one, we had a place where Xander, my son, would be able to get care, but support that I was going to at least be able to have a healthy delivery for them. And I did.
This question is for Lindsay and Hillary. Our baby boy is actually transitioning to middle school next year. I'm just wondering if you have any tips or tricks or ways to support going from elementary school, which is very different to middle school.
You know, when I was in elementary school, I had the surgery when I was in 5th grade, and when I got back, not a lot of people knew. No one knew, but then the teachers knew, and they helped me a lot, and then I told some of my classmates, and they understood, and they were really nice about it. And then 6th grade, my teachers knew also, and they were nice about it, and it was just, sometimes I would just put my catheter in my pocket and walk to the bathroom and not let anyone see it, because I don't mind them knowing, but I don't want to answer any questions or explain it so much. But it is nice having people know about it, because then if they do need to be in the bathroom longer, they'll know. But I got nothing.
So when Koleden was in kindergarten, we set up the 504 plan, and we are a small town in Idaho, but the school has been wonderful. So every year we have a meeting with the principal, his upcoming teacher, and the district nurse. And we would go through and we would explain it, and we would let them know what needed to happen. And so after the reconstruction, we had a few different meetings. Going into 7th grade, I'm nervous, like he's my baby too, and there's just more. And so at the end of the school year, we met with the 7th grade counselor and kind of got a plan in place. What's really cool is Koleden also has, which we didn't know until we were there, but there's another boy with colloquial exstrophy that they have been in the same grade, in the same class, and so kind of gone through the same 504 plan and their neighbors and so forth. So that has been helpful, but really I think the biggest thing is we're just taking it one step at a time. We have a plan in place. I'm nervous, but he probably doesn't care. But as far as making sure that we've always, my husband and we've always asked the questions, Koleden, build the confidence. There's, you have to go to the bathroom, you go to the bathroom. If there's a problem, and that you're not able to use the bathroom, you let me know. And then I will make sure, so it's always been really hands-on. He also has a medical necklace that it's just, I don't know, it's really nice to have along with his baseball number, because that's important too. So we have that, and all of his teachers know this coming month we'll be meeting with each of his teachers and kind of just letting them know what the plan is in place. We've had it since kindergarten, and really I would say if you don't have a 504 plan in place, get one, because you go through up until they graduate high school with one in place, and it will always be there. And it's easier to have it and then add on to it than to try to get it going when they're in high school or middle school and there's a lot more going on.
Kim, Thomas, and Anna, do you want to share when and how you disclosed your exstrophy or your bathroom regimen to anyone close to you?
I never disclosed it with anyone growing up really. Sometimes my parents, my mom in particular, would often talk to the nurses, or I'm also come from a small town in New Hampshire, so people just kind of know the teachers and know the community, and so they would go through those channels, and everyone was pretty nice about it. I actually don't know if we ever needed a formal IEP by kind of giving everyone kind of went along with it. But as far as like more of a social kind of point of view, I never really told anyone, and it wasn't that I was embarrassed about it. It was the mindset that they didn't really need to know, because we all have implicit biases in whether or not you act upon it. But as soon as you hear something, and anything about anyone changes your perception on them. So I'm like, I don't think there'll be issues, but why even open the door to possibility? So I didn't really tell anyone, and I just came up with plans to be pretty secretive about it. And I think through grade school, I told one significant other. I only had one significant other, so 100% on that one. And like one friend towards like senior year, so there's very few. Basically, on that basis.
I've never been like shameful of my condition, but I never like outwardly told people about that I had it or anything. Like I go to the beach and I wear bikinis and I'm proud of myself, but I mean, people will look at my scars, but they never ask. So I think as long as I normalize it and don't like be ashamed of it, like then other people won't see that it's like a weakness of mine, I guess. I don't know.
Own in your story, like Steve said.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm reaching back a long time ago. Like David, my parents kind of were of an era, which one of you, but were of an era that very protective, and we weren't going to talk about it. My mom still is like that to this day. But I think what's interesting is I have an identical twin who had no problems with extrovert, great protector. I think 5 Northeast at University Hospital, they weren't that excited about her running down the halls with holding my IV pole in a wheelchair, but she was awesome. But my mother, I just remember she got grounded for telling our friend that I had extrovert. I probably was, probably 11 or 12. So it was pretty clear to us that we weren't supposed to talk about it. That said, I definitely was talking about it in high school and college. I was talking about it a lot, and I really appreciated it. And I want to say one more thing, that just us up here aren't the only experts. Last night, I got to meet Winnie, who has a really interesting story, because her mom, she's from the Netherlands, and her mom actually went to her school and did a presentation with students, and that was made it very accepting for her, so that's cool to hear. But I know it's different everywhere, and I think most parents want to protect their kid.
Certainly in college, I think I might have opened up a little bit more. The other thing is you also miss school sometimes for like weeks or a month at a time, so it's not like nothing's there, like it's all an illusion. So it's usually abdominal issues, and people don't really ask questions for that. And then kind of as they get to the inner circle, then you reveal more and more information as they kind of get through some of those things.
When I did start talking to people, sort of like this whole idea of being a superpower, people were amazed. Because I was an athlete. I did softball and volleyball, and I didn't run track. I left that to my sister, but I was extremely active. I don't know if I told you, I rode in the head of the Charles and came in second. So I was always very active, and I don't think that my mom wasn't very appreciative of that. Early on, she wanted me to not hurt myself. But I think actually that's what's interesting about being with a lot of the parents here, to see how much support that you're giving, and it helps me to understand what she went through as well. But I would say, as much as a kid wants to do and is safe doing, go for it.
Kind of want to add on to that. We went to our first bladder exstrophy conference when it was in Seattle when Koleden was 4. And we heard a family talk about how the boy was in kindergarten and they went to the class and they explained it and the kids were so curious about it. And my husband and I decided like, that is what, like, Koleden is fine, Koleden's healthy, Koleden wants to be involved in sports and nothing is stopping him. So we've always taken that approach where we don't wanna, like, we're not going out there and being like, hey, this kid has this, but it's never been something that we've hid. Like if he's had to have surgeries, it's, you know, being open about it and letting people know his story or why he has to go to the bathroom. And now that he's getting older, we've left it up to him who he wants to tell and who he wants to share his experiences with. But it's always been something that, I mean, it's Koleden and we're proud of him. And Dr. Snovorian, and Dr. Grady were Koleden's doctors. And the first time that they met Koleden, I didn't, you know, we were airlifted here and it was scary because I was a brand new mom and I'm like, what the heck am I doing? And they came in because our doctors in Missoula, they looked it up in a book when he was delivered. So it was just kind of like, we don't know. And they held him first. So he was Koleden first and then he was patient. And right there, it just set the tone for how we wanted to handle it, that bladder exstrophy, these kids are special, and they're special because they're smart and talented and they're strong, and they can do whatever they want, and that's what Koleden's doing, whatever he wants. So we've always just wanted to support that, and I think the more open he is about it, the more confident he is about it as well.
Yeah, from a lot of people or a lot of friends that I have kind of growing up, a lot of them that were open about it, if you enter those conversations with confidence or good and cool thing or positive, the people that you're talking to, especially the kids at that age that are listening, kind of feed off of that energy and will respond with that same similar energy. So if you, I mean, it's a lot easier to say than do, but if you approach those conversations of, hey, this is something that's kind of actually cool about me and I'm proud of it, then typically you'll get a lot more of a positive response. Almost anyone I've talked to. I will say the same thing for those who are close about or open about the diagnosis.
Anna, do you mind sharing how you recently disclosed to somebody by telling them about Exstrophy first? Because I thought it was really creative and I tell everyone about it. You don't have to give us all the details, but just the premise of it.
So there's this boy, of course. And like this was like a little right before Uganda, and we were barely dating for like almost a month. And so I had to leave. I was planning on going to Uganda with my mom, and obviously like it's not a weekend trip, so I can't just be like, oh, I'm going there for vacation. And so he was always asking me like why I was going to Uganda, so I told him like what my mom does, which is an advantage to my part because I can ease him into like bladder exstrophy by telling him what my mom does. So like he kept asking me questions like why I was going to Uganda and what was the reason. And so finally I told him that I'm going there to help the kids because I have the condition. So, and I mean he thought it was pretty cool. He didn't really think much of it, which is good but I think if I didn't tell him about bladder exstrophy before, he would have had way more questions.
Yeah, I thought that was really creative, and I've had a lot of young boys and girls who had started dating and they were worried about how they were going to disclose, and so I keep giving them Anna's story because it's brilliant. Any other questions from the group?
We do have another online question.
Okay.
Okay. So this one is from Diane. It says, what piece of advice would you give providers as they continue to learn from this terrific community of patients?
Thanks, Diane. That was my next one too. Yeah, like what would you want providers to know from a parent perspective or a patient perspective?
I think just giving time to learn about the families, just like Dr. McGarry said, when there's just so much unknown about bladder exstrophy, and oftentimes we're going into these appointments having all of these questions, and then you get to the appointment and then you forget all of your questions, and then you don't even remember just how you're there. You just know that, okay, here's my son, he has bladder exstrophy. Tell me how you can treat him, or help me just understand his symptoms. And so, rather than just telling the parent, you're just having a little bit more of that collaborative conversing and just asking how you're feeling, and just gathering more information and just learning about the family. One thing that I really appreciate is just how quickly Dr. McGarry and Dr. On get back to me through my chart. They're always, or the nurses too also are always receptive in just giving us information, and I think that's really helpful, especially since I'm not in Seattle. And I have had to make one last minute trip to Seattle one day, but for the most part, it's just great to know that a team in Seattle is on our side, and to talk them up even more. So my son was born in March. He had his closure in July, but in March, I just had him. I was in newborn days, and they called me and they said, "Hi, we heard that Xander was born, and we're ready to get him on our schedule." So the fact that they reached out to me and just helped so much to just know, oh, there is a group of providers who are ready to treat my son. This diagnosis that is just so foreign, but then now here's this group of providers who are ready to support us and to treat us. And so just getting to know the families and instead of just telling them what to do or waiting.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
Hi, Diane. I wanted to say that I think it's very different probably now than it was when I was young, but my doctor was, the thing that's the same as now is that every one of us who's a bladder exstrophy patient is so connected to that person, right? Like everything revolves around that doctor and how awesome they are and what they're doing for us. I named my stuffed monkey Julian after my doctor. But when I was 6 years old and in the hospital, he always spoke to me like I was part of the care team. So I really appreciated that. And in fact, like many exstrophy patients, I went into healthcare, but I loved as a 6-year-old to present when the residents were rounding, I presented my own case. And so that was kind of a little fun thing we did, was just the engagement and encouragement he gave me.
And I don't know if this is a provider's job or a marketing team with Seattle Children's Hospital or even ABC, but I advise talking and communicating with other doctors and hospitals, because I was just so surprised in our experience how 2 different hospitals seem to really don't even think about bladder exstrophy. So the very first hospital that we went to, when they told us that they weren't even comfortable delivering our baby. I told them the next appointment that I'm self-referring myself to Seattle Children's. Can you make this happen? And the case manager actually told us that in her 30 years of working in MFM, in the MFM field, that we are only the second family that she knows that decided to keep the pregnancy. Otherwise, other families that she knows that heard that their child had bladder atrophy all terminated. So she has actually asked me to update her, and I feel like that is a great opportunity to just provide other resources to other hospitals, because as you all know, these children deserve to live. And I just couldn't believe how many times termination came up in when we were first diagnosed with it. And so doctors need to know that bladder exstrophy is not a reason to terminate a pregnancy.
Thanks for sharing your story.
Just to kind of add on with Seattle Children's, that's our only experience. Koleden has been going here for 12 years and we love it. We make a trip out of it. The nurses, the care team, they really are part of our family. Dr. Schnovorian gets pictures of Koleden sports, knows about the kids, we'll give her hugs. Like, it is very, like, they really do spend that extra time getting to know the patient as Koleden instead of, oh, this kid with bladder exstrophy. And I think that's so important, and that's what makes them stand out a little more than others.
Any questions from the group? Some people today have talked about how bladder exstrophy has changed them, changed their family. Could you all speak about how maybe bladder exstrophy has led your family to grow in a certain way, or what it's had you see about life?
Koleden was our first, and we really are pretty lucky. He's always been hands-on, he's always been independent, he's been strong, so he has taught us as parents how to be more empathetic, how to be kind, how to be resilient to his brothers, just to our whole family in general. And he really is our backbone, and we're just really proud of him, and he amazes us every day. And I think having him as our first, we had no idea what to do, and we just never gonna get it right as parents. It doesn't matter if they have bladder exstrophy or not, we're always gonna be making mistakes. But really, it just made us stronger, I think, as a family, and it does bring us together. And it's just one piece of Koleden, it's not all of Koleden.
He said she covered everything.
Well, it's definitely made our family stronger, not just closer, but also in our faith. I truly believe that everything is placed perfectly for us to be right here and for Xander to be in this world. I truly believe that Xander deserved to be here. And when I think about just everything that has gone on, and I'm sure a lot of parents have the same comment, people will be like, I can't believe you have to go through all of that, but it's all we know. And it's just life. It's life. It's just a part of us, and it's just, it's not something that we dwell on. It's always in the back of our minds, but we just continue to push through. And I made a comment to someone not that long ago that despite all of that, everything that we've gone through in the past year and a half, my life has never felt more perfect. And it's like everything, all the pieces just fall where they need to be. And we have faith that it's all supposed to just happen that way. And just keep going.
Bladder exstrophy has affected my family, especially my mom, because she wouldn't be here definitely without me. She wouldn't know all these people, all you guys, or the doctors, but it's affected me by like, it's easier for me to tell, like, weed out the fake friends from the real friends, I guess.
I could probably talk for hours about how it's kind of got me to the point of where I'm at right now. And growing up, it played a huge role in my life. I volunteered at Boston Children's, so that was not just being a patient, but just I felt really intertwined with the community there. And I was at college, I was into here and what I'm probably going to do for my career. So like I said, like the hours. As far as the family relations, it's kind of hard to tell, obviously, without having something to compare it to. So I have two older brothers. I don't think I've ever had a full conversation with either of them about Exstrophy. But we're on good terms. I'm with brothers. So, you know how it goes. With my parents, I think there are definitely times where it's a little bit strained. We have a good relationship in general. I can easily say that I have a good relationship with my parents, but it's definitely been strained at times in the past. And I think some patients, sometimes they feel guilty, like I know there are certainly stretches where I felt guilty about either requiring more. I was born on Thanksgiving morning, by the way, and that was unexpected, so right off the bat, it was kind of a little bit of a burden there. So there's always been kind of some mixed feelings there, and I've always wondered if my parents kind of felt guilty. I know a few of the other speakers said that maybe sometimes parents feel guilty as well. Maybe they could have done something different during pregnancy, which I don't think there is something. It's just random chance you have twins, and one has it, one of them doesn't, so it's just luck of the draw or luck of the draw sometimes. So it really is hard to compare, like at the end of the day, if it's had a significant impact or not. But it's certainly influenced what I've gotten to now, so I wouldn't change it.
I can speak from more perspective as an older person. That what's interesting is, first of all, my mother was very young. She was only 18 when I was born. So not only that, she didn't know she was having twins. And one of them is a little defective in the bladder area. So my mom was she is such an extremely strong person, and she was not gonna let me say I couldn't do anything except for sports. But now it's so interesting, my sister and I are a lot alike, but she always says something about me that she doesn't say about Chris, and I think Chris knows it, and that is, Kim can do anything. So that actually is extremely meaningful to me. The other thing I'll say about having a twin, which is super fun, is that we are each other's yardstick. She was my kind of healthy person to achieve, like this is what I want to be, this is the way I want to move through life. And I was her resilience and yardstick. So I was the person that kind of, and to this day, she still sort of checks in with me. What would you do in this case? What would you do that? Okay, if I have to have this MRI, what's that like? And so helping her manage that. And then lastly, I'll say that my mom did so much to take me to all my appointments. And now my mom's at a point in her life, and she's not ill. She just has a bad hip and other things, and so I go to her appointments with her. So I guess that's life-changing for me, because a lot of Exstrophy is that need to pay back, and I'm happy to do it.
Anybody have any other questions for the panel? Should we wrap up, Pam, or do you want us to? Okay. Because you and Dr. Megorian are gonna close for us. But lastly, I have one more question for the panel. What has been your takeaway from this conference? What are you bringing home with you?
I have to admit something. Only 6 months ago did I even know what ABC was all about. I hadn't really done much in the 60s and 70s. It wasn't the same level of support groups. And the first person I met who was bladder Exstrophy is this guy. And I started working with him, I guess in May, just a few months ago, to talk about this patient advisory council. So super new to me, this concept of this, which is ironic because it's the work I did have I do in my life is healthcare patient support, activating patient stories. But what's so different is if you don't feel like you have a community, which it's not like I just didn't know anybody with it. And there wasn't a support group, so I didn't consider myself as having need for, or even that my condition was as bad as these poor leukemia patients that I was helping to activate their stories and try to recruit more donors to the donor registry. It's a very different feeling when you look around the room and realize everybody here is affected by it. And so that feeling of community is awesome.
I think one of the things for me that has stood out today is the growth and the cohesive research between the different centers is really starting to culminate well. Growing up, whenever someone asked me a question about causes of the birth defects or what's like the best course of action to try to treat it, I always said like, oh well, there are these thoughts on this or that, but it's just kind of like sometimes it's roll the dice and sometimes it's use your best judgment. I like the group decision making, if you get the phrase used earlier. I think I like that term. But seeing and so like when I was in middle school or so, I think my whole family did DNA samples to try to add to those cohorts of studies. And I think that they've really been to build up some of that work so that now when the hospitals start working together and they can get these larger sample sizes to really start to look at it from a research point of view. I think that that's really made huge strides over the last few years. There's a lot of stuff I need to catch up on my reading as well, so I look forward to that in the future.
Something that I'm gonna take away from this trip is Taylor Swift tickets. Yeah. No, but I think just more knowledge about like my upcoming surgery and like future like expectations, I think.
As I mentioned earlier, just not being alone. Just as I mentioned, the feeling that there's a community it's overwhelming and it's great. The Facebook group is great, but when you actually get to see people in person, it makes a huge difference. I definitely felt that this weekend.
When I came to this When I came to this conference, I didn't realize how many families there would be with about the same age of kids that also have bladder exstrophy. I didn't realize how many people had it and what their story was. I thought it was really cool coming to this conference just to hear other people's stories and learn more about what people have done with their surgeries. And I thought it was really, really inspiring for me and other kids.
Just connecting, being able to hear perspectives from all ages, as parents, knowing what it's going to be like, what Koleden's future holds, and just hearing all, like, everyone was amazing, and just listening to all of the stories. You guys are inspiring, and it just really does cement the fact that BE kids and adults, they're amazing, and we're lucky to be around them.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to share what their takeaways are? Bill? Community. What about you, Tom? What's your takeaway from the conference? a loving family. Great. All right, well, thank you for joining us, the panel participants.